Yo, what's up, brothers and sisters? How y'all doing today? Today, this video is gonna be about the importance of fatherhood. Now, I'm about to post a few videos and let y'all see that our problem that we have in this world today, it is not truly the government, and it's not truly white supremacists and racism, really. Yes, we have that against us, but the main problem, it begins at home. And where it begins at home is the absence of fatherhood. Now take a look at these videos, and after you watch it, then I'm gonna get my commentary.
There was something I read where you talked about your people from Mount Vernon saying that, you know, like they've done like 40 years in the penitentiary together. So, and, you know, incarceration rates in America has been a problem, especially as opposed to minorities. And Roman delves into the issues around the legal system. Do you think we've made any headway in the
I think it's more important to make headway in our own house. By the time the system comes into play, the damage is done. They're not locking up 7-year-olds.
Yeah.
You know, I was in Chicago a couple of 3-4 weeks ago, and we saw these little kids on bikes with masks on the side of their head, like 5 or 6 of them. And the driver said, "Yeah, they're little yummies." I said, "Who?" He said, "Little yummies. Look up, Google Little Yummy." Little Yummy was an 11-year-old murderer.
Wow.
And you look at his picture, you'll see the headshot of him, and he's like this. And he got murdered at 11 by a 14-year-old.
Wow.
Who's doing life now, and a 16-year-old.
Makes no sense.
You blame the system? Where was his father? It starts in the house. It starts in the home. And yeah, well, my father got locked up. Well, where was his father?
Yeah.
You know, like I did talk about my 3 closest friends, and they did, you know, 15 to 25. One did 28, this and that. I was the only one of the 3 that had a father in my life, even though my parents were together. But I still had a father who was a gentle man and a good example.
Yeah.
And they didn't. We can blame the system if we want, but they didn't lock any of us up at 7.
Yeah.
We were all doing enough to get locked up at 13. My parents sent me in another direction. They didn't have anybody to help them, and they kept doing what they was doing, and the system got them. So I don't, the system is rigged, but why? All the more reason not to help it.
Speaking of fatherhood, Olivia, Malcolm, JD, all doing great things, and JD is now working with Spike Lee
right now,
on
yeah.
the Black Klansman.
Yeah.
I want to know, like, do you have any advice for him on working with Spike?
We were talking this morning. We would talk for about an hour and a half this morning, and I'm proud of them all. My daughter's doing Shakespeare, Taming of the Shrew in Chicago. My other son's an AFI graduate, Penn graduate, got a Morehouse graduate, an NYU graduate, a Yale graduate. You know, my wife did a great job. You know, but to answer your question, yeah, we you know, it's hard when you're father, you know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay out of it. But I'm his father, you know. Yeah. But he asked me, you know, and I told him, I said, man, roll with Spike. Spike, I learned how to really improvise and flow with Spike.
Yeah. You
know, with Mo Better Blues and all the rest of him, and he's learning that now, and so I'm proud of them all.
Appreciate the time, brother.
Now that what Denzel Washington said, it is so profound, and it reigns so true, because fathers tend to, we tend to direct our children in a path that's unlike our path. We tend to push our children to excellency, to where you even see how when Denzel Washington said that his friends, that the difference between him and his friends was the fact that he had a father in his life and his friends didn't. So that means they just grew up with their mother, while he grew up with his mother and father, and his parents did the best that they could to keep him away from, to keep him out of trouble, to keep him in a good neighborhood, to keep him in a good school, and so on and so forth. And then at the end, if you see how, even with his children, like, listen at the accolades that they had attained. I mean, they graduates of established schools, universities, and I mean, and then his son, one of his children, is following his footsteps by being in a movie. And then he had another child that played football. Like, with a father being in the house, man, the children tend to strive for excellency. They tend to want to make their father proud. And they, like, you even heard him say, I'm proud of my children. That's what fathers bring to the table. Whereas a mother, not knocking mothers, but whereas mothers, they don't have that same esteem of, you know, so they don't have that same regard as what fathers have. Because we tend to teach our child and do different than how we was raised, and we try to raise our children in that like manner of doing better than how we was raised. Now look at this other video, and this video right here should shake your bed. Now check this out.
We're here, we go. All right? Okay? We're all here together, okay?
Down at 16 is come up with a better way. Because how we doing it, it ain't working. He angry at 46. I'm angry at 31. You angry at 16.
It's over.
You understand me? Putting yourself in harm's way is not the way.
No, it's not.
You and the other your counterparts the same age and that have that same power. Y'all coming with a better way. Because we ain't doing it.
Years ago, I interviewed Kwesi Mfume, then the president of the NAACP. As between the presence of white racism and the absence of black fathers, I asked him, which poses the bigger threat to the black community? Without missing a beat, he said, the absence of black fathers. It was President Barack Obama who said, we all know these statistics, that children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. The Journal of Research on Adolescence confirms that even after controlling for varying levels of household income, kids in father-absent homes are more likely to end up in jail. And kids who never had a father in the house are the most likely to wind up behind bars. In 1960, 5% of America's children entered the world without a mother and father married to each other. By 1980, it was 18%. By 2000, it had risen to 33%, and 15 years later, the number reached 41%. For blacks, even during slavery, when marriage for slaves was illegal, black children were more likely than today to be raised by both their mother and father. Economist Walter Williams has written that, according to census data from 1890 to 1940, a black child was more likely to grow up with married parents than a white child. For blacks, out-of-wedlock births have gone from 25% in 1965 to 73% in 2015. For whites, from less than 5% to over 25%, and for Hispanics, out-of-wedlock births have risen to 53%. What happened to fathers? The answer is found in a basic law of economics. If you subsidize undesirable behavior, you will get more undesirable behavior. In 1949, the nation's poverty rate was 34%. By 1965, it was cut in half to 17%, all before President Lyndon Johnson's so-called war on poverty. But after that war began in 1965, poverty began to flatline. From 1965 until now, the government has spent over $20 trillion to fight poverty. The poverty rate has remained unchanged, but the relationship between poor men and women has changed dramatically. That's because our generous welfare system allows women, in effect, to marry the government. And this makes it all too easy for men to abandon their traditional moral and financial responsibilities. Psychologists call such dependency learned helplessness. How do we know that the welfare state creates disincentives that hurt the very people we're trying to help? They tell us. In 1985, the Los Angeles Times asked both the poor and the non-poor whether poor women often have children to get additional benefits. Most of the non-poor respondents said no. However, 64% of poor respondents said yes. Now, who do you think is in a better position to know? Tupac Shakur, the late rapper, once said, "I know for a fact that had I had a father, I'd have some discipline, I'd have more confidence." He admitted he began running with gangs because he wanted the things a father gives to a child, especially to a boy: structure and protection. Your mother cannot calm you down the way a man can, Shakur said. You need a man to teach you how to be a man. In my book, Dear Father, Dear Son, I write about my rough, tough World War II Marine Staff Sergeant dad. Born in the Jim Crow South of Athens, Georgia, he was 14 at the start of the Great Depression. Growing up, I watched my father work 2 full-time jobs as a janitor. He also cooked for a rich family on the weekends and somehow managed to go to night school to get his GED. When I was 10, my father opened a small restaurant that he ran until he retired in his mid-80s. He was never angry or bitter and insisted that today's America was very different from the world of racial segregation and limited opportunity in which he grew up. Hard work wins, he told me and my brothers. You get out of life what you put into it. You can't control the outcome, but you are 100% in control of the effort. And before blaming other people, go to the nearest mirror and ask yourself, what could I have done to change the outcome? This advice shaped my life. Fathers matter. Until we have a government policy that makes that its first priority, nothing will change. I'm Larry Elder for Prager University.
Now, in the beginning of that video, the way the white man consoled the black young man, and he said, "We are all here." That right there lets you know that it's not like, yes, you have your racist white. You got white people out here that are prejudiced against blacks, just like you have some blacks that are prejudiced against whites. But now, it's not solely about that, because at the end of the day, we are all human. We are all men and women. And then the second video that he played, the second clip, where that brother was talking to that young man, I mean, it was so profound. Just like he said, we need to come up with a better way. He said, "Cause we ain't doing it." He said, "You angry?" He's angry at 46. I'm angry at 31, and you angry at 16. He said that we've been doing this for years, and then he mentioned that he marched. They did the same thing 4 years prior to now, with Mike Brown, with your Eric Garners. Like, we've been doing this countless, man, time after time after time after time. When is it going to change? And that change, it begins with us. That change begins with us, you guys. With us, one, with having a 2-parent household, a father and a mother household. Because women, you can't just do it by yourselves. Because just like the man said in the video, you're not married to the man. You try to kick the man aside, even though the government utilizes the man to fund your pockets, so that you can get your government assistance. But you're married to the government though. And then look at where the government put you. They don't let you stay in a nice neighborhood where your child can be prominent and strive and thrive in life. They put you right in the hood. Section 8 people, typically, like, some might be in a good neighborhood, but typically they right in the hood. And what does the hood do? It bring about more hood people. That's why when you look at children that are raised by single mothers and just single parents, the mothers, they are irrational people. They don't know authority. And just like me, when I went to the military, that taught me authority. Because you could have a person that's younger than you in the military that's an officer. And guess what you got to do to that officer? You got to render salute. And if that officer tell you to go do something, you got to do it. It ain't no, man, I ain't doing that, man. You younger than me. Or, man, forget that, man. No. Ain't none of that popping off. Because if you do that, guess what? That's insubordination. And you're going to get punished for it. And then your petty officers in boot camp, because I tell anybody, me personally, I think boot camp is harder than prison. It's prison-like. Because when you go to boot camp, well, when I went to boot camp, I don't know about now, but back in 2007, you didn't have your cell phone. When you, just as soon as you get into that building, into that facility, all your clothes, you come out of that. Your necklaces, your rings, your earrings, your watch, everything. Everything that is civilian, it goes back to home. And then you put on, we used to have utilities. They, I think now they changed up from utilities to now where they're wearing the digis. But we used to have utilities. Every day you wear the same uniform. You iron that uniform. Make sure your creases look good. You make sure it's presentable. You had with the uniform, you had creases right here. let me rotate the camera down a little bit. You had creases right here, and then you had a crease right here. Like you had creases here. I mean, you had to be presentable at all times. So the difference between prison and boot camp, in prison, you had work to do. You had to exercise. And then if you did something wrong or irrational, you get IT'd. IT, we call it beaten, but you get IT'd. And that's intense training. Man, it was one time where we worked out so much, man, I sweated from my head to my feet, literally. And guess what that did? That broke us. It made us like, you know what? I don't want to do this no more. Whereas prison, it don't reform you. It don't correct you. Even though it's called a correctional facility, it's not correctional. It don't correct you. It makes you worse. Now, just like the man said in the video, look at how marriage went in the black community. It went from 25% to 73%. Fatherless homes. 25 to 73. From 1965, I think he said it was, to 2015, you guys. That's not a long time. And then in the white community went from 5% to just 24. That's bad. That's still bad that you got fatherless homes. And then in the Mexican community, 24% to, I think it went up to 53 or something like that. That's still bad. What happened? Like he said, what happened to fathers? Why do we discount and say, I don't need no dad, I could do bad by myself? Why do women feel that way? I mean, because think about it. If you had a father in your life, just imagine where your life could have been. Instead of being in the hood and then you have children and you carry on that cycle, like the Bible speaks of a generational curse, you carry it on. Just imagine if you had a father to where your life would have been better. A father and a mother, where your life would have been better, to where your mother and your father works hard so you could be in a better neighborhood, so you can go to a better school, so you could be around people that's like-minded, that do right. You know what I mean? That, you know what I'm saying, y'all push each other type thing. And then, like, I don't disagree with it takes a village to raise a child, but that village got to be on one accord. Like, for example, if me and my wife was both working and if my mother was around, they have to carry on the same rules and regulations that we have in our house, it should be carried on there. It shouldn't be no difference. Like, well, since you're here, you could do this here. You could do different than when you do at your mama house. You got a little freedom. No, it should be the same thing that we do. It should be carried on there. But now the thing about it is, if the village ain't on one accord, guess what happens? That child might go down to whoever, the cousins, the uncles, or whatever like that, and then you might have a molestation, like a child molestation might be going on. The child might be raped by your family members, because typically rape and molestation, it's by someone that you know, by someone that you trust. So I'm an advocate for father's rights. I'm an advocate for a 2-parent household. And because that's what the Bible calls for. The word of God says, Father, bring up your children in nurture and admonition of the Lord. Father, provoke not thy child to wrath. Father, you know what I'm saying? Train up your children in the way they should go. When he get older, he will not depart from it. If a father spares the rod, he hates his son. So it's up to us to discipline our children. It's up to us to train them. It's up to us to instill values in them, man. Right now, with what's going on in this world and in this community, in this world right now, may he rest in peace. But if you look at like a lot of these cop violence and murders and stuff that take place, guess what? Cops don't just go up and say, "Oh, he black." Pow, pow, pow. Oh, he black. They provoke you. They'll do things like, "Hey, where you going? Where you coming from? Let me see your license and registration." And they do things like that, so you be like, "Man, I ain't got to show you my license, man. I ain't got to take you my lane. Do you have probable cause? Do you have probable cause? Am I being detained?" They do stuff like that. And white people do it too. And we following the steps of white people, but guess what? We not white. We gonna get our tail whooped or murdered. So if we were to teach our children, instead of being unruly and try to do the things that white people do, if we were to tell our children, say, "Hey, look, whenever a cop come up, no matter if you right or wrong, just do everything they say. If they ask you for your license and registration, give it to them. If they ask you for your name, give it to them." Because you could take a 5-minute stop and then be gone. A 5 to 10 minute stop and be gone. Because all they're going to do is run your name, see if you got warrants and, whatever the case may be. And if they see you clean, you're gone. Or if a crime had happened and then they say, "Well, you fit the description that was given." Okay, you just fit the description. But take a 5 to 10 minute stop and go on about your business, instead of taking what could be a 5 to 10 minute stop and dying. Or a 5 to 10 minute stop and getting your tail whooped. And then you're going to get charges placed on you for what? What are they going to say? 1, resisting arrest. 2, hindering an investigation. And they throw stuff at you. So you're going to get a record for something stupid. That's why I teach my son that right now. Because I want y'all to think about it for a second. Every murder at the hand of a police. Yes, I call it murder because that is wrong. You don't need to kill nobody. You don't need to take it that far. But every murder that happened at the hands of a police, what brought it about? And I know people be like, "Well, they be compliant." How can you be compliant by saying, "Man, get off me, man. I ain't do nothing. Get off of me, man." Or you running, or how is that compliance? That's not compliance. That's non-compliance. And then they get beat. Then they get a chokehold put on them. You know what I'm saying? To where they die. Or they get a knee to their back of their neck where they can't breathe and they die. Or where, you know what I'm saying, you playing with a BB gun in the public and they pull up and be like, "Drop the gun," and you don't drop it and then you die. Or, you know what I'm saying, like, I'm just naming out these things, man, because this is what happens to us, man. It's time now for a change. And that change begins with us, like Denzel Washington said. Because just like he said in the video, yes, systematic oppression and stuff like that, yes, the system that gets us, but ain't no need to help it. We helping them murder us. We helping them hurt us. Let's do something different, man. Let's have fathers in the household. Let's do away with child support, and mother and father, y'all work together. Because just like Denzel Washington said, even though his parents weren't together, they still work together. That's what's needed, yo. All right, man. Let's work for a better. Let's work towards better. Let's do better. Let's pray for a change, man. Because like the Bible says that if we pray to, well, first of all, we need God back in our lives. Because everybody that's out there right now that's marching and doing the stuff, and then they say, well, we believe in God, but yet you out there, you looting, you out there destroying property. That's not a God. That's not a God. God is not a God of destruction. He's not that type of God of tearing somebody else's stuff down. Because let's be honest, when you loot that stuff, what you doing? You coveting. You covet the stuff that they have, and you get it. You want it. So look, man, let's advocate for change, man. Let's do better, man. I love y'all. Spread this message to our brothers and sisters, man, that we fathers need to be in their children's lives, and women need to stop just having children just so they can have a financial gain. Like, go to school, man. Do something better. You know what I'm saying? Create a job. You know what I'm saying? We got talent. Use it. Peace.